Hello everyone and welcome to Research in Daily Life 2. My name is Mr. Mark Joseph Zapanta from the Communication and Research Department, and I will be your instructor for this particular subject. Now in this video, we have the following contents. First, we have subject description and overview, followed by the expectations. Next would be the grading system that we'll be using for this subject, and the requirements that you're going to need. Lastly would be the questions that you are most likely going to ask me. To start off, we have our subject title. The title is Research in Daily Life 2 or Practical Research 2. Now, before we continue, I want you to focus on these two terms here, which are daily life and practical. When we say daily life, it's usually associated with everyday practice, something that you do on a regular basis. It could be your habits, your routines, pretty much anything that you do regularly. Practical is simply actual application of what you have learned. As such, at the end of this subject, it is expected that the students would be able to effectively apply what they have learned about quantitative research in everyday living. Because you might not know it, but you're already conducting research regularly. But that is going to be discussed in the future though, not at this moment. For the subject description, this course develops critical thinking and problem-solving skills through quantitative research. Again, I want you to focus on critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and quantitative research. Let's start with critical thinking. Critical thinking usually involves analyzing information, evaluating the facts, and forming rational judgment. A person who practices critical thinking is able to identify which particular information is relevant or reliable and which is not valid. A person who is a critical thinker would be able to discern whether this particular source of information is reliable or fake. Otherwise, if a person is not able to establish or practice critical thinking, he or she would simply believe everything or anything that he would see or hear online. This is very crucial because nowadays a lot of information would be available online. It is important to practice critical thinking in order to determine which particular information or news are we going to believe in. Next would be problem-solving skills. When we say problem-solving skills, it is the ability to effectively find relevant solutions to difficult or complex issues. A person who is able to practice problem-solving skills simply is able to find solutions to even the most complex or technical problems or issues presented to him. And lastly, quantitative research. Remember that we have Research in Daily Life 1 when you were in grade 11, and Research in Daily Life 2, which is the subject that we have now. In Research in Daily Life 1, you are introduced to the concept of qualitative research, wherein you value the perceptions, opinions, insights, and experiences of your respondents. While in quantitative research, or Research in Daily Life 2, we're going to discuss quantitative research. We will focus on numbers, quantitative data, statistics, formulas, and pretty much anything that we're going to deal with involves numbers, mathematics, and numeric data. For the expectations, the first one is reading and writing, not the actual subject but the skills themselves. The students are expected to apply reading and analyzing information and finding the connection between the references and the topic at hand. This is usually applied when looking for related literature in your research. Because remember, it is not simply about looking for relevant sources, it's also identifying whether this particular source of information would be relevant in the forming or the building of your study. Also, you're going to write notes, updates, and ideas or conclusions about any information that you have read. Remember, in reading and writing, you were taught how to read critically and how to write technical papers. As such, part of the requirement is writing research reports complete with data analysis and interpretation as well as recommendations. Because one of the requirements is for you to come up with a research report that you'll be presenting verbally and in written form. Next one would be skills and knowledge application. Now, the students under this course are expected to effectively apply learned concepts on practical research subjects in order to comply with the subject requirements. Furthermore, the students are expected to apply appropriate techniques in conducting a research study. Example would be citations, data gathering, data analysis, and hypothesis formulation. If you would remember, you had the following subjects before. First, we have English for academic and professional purposes, reading and writing, pagbasa at pagsusuri in Filipino, pagsusulat sa Filipino sa piling larangan, statistics, and oral communication. Now, the reason why these subjects are given to you before you actually conduct this particular subject or before we have this subject is because these subjects actually contribute to how you're going to write your research. English for academic and professional purposes, reading and writing, pagbasa at pagsusuri, pagsulat sa Filipino sa piling larangan would contribute on identifying a topic, searching for relevant literature, writing the research paper itself, making proper citations, analyzing written data, and data interpretation. While statistics would help in quantitative data treatment and analysis. Oral communication, of course, would help you in terms of oral presentations and defense. And of course, Research in Daily Life 1 and Research in Daily Life 2 are necessary for you to be able to have an effective or successful research project or capstone research for those who are studying STEM. Next one would be another expectation: discussions, worksheets, and presentations. Now, part of any research-focused subject would be the discussion or reporting of the student researchers regarding their output. Now, the students are expected to accomplish various worksheets that would gauge their understanding of the concepts that have been discussed in class. Now, you might be asking, what kind of reporting or discussions are you going to do? That will be discussed as we progress in our discussions. For our grading system, we have the following components. Because this is an applied subject, we have 25, 45, and 30%. So 25% would be allotted for the written output, which would be seat work and quizzes, 10%, and the prelims would be 15%. 45% would be allotted for your performance task, your worksheets, the mini tasks, and major tasks. And lastly would be your quarterly assessment, which would be 30%. So pretty much you would still have the same requirements like your regular class, albeit a different way or different method of delivering it. And now for the requirements. The first requirement is for students to always have active participation. How do you have active participation? First, by answering worksheets. As what was mentioned earlier, the worksheets would help gauge how well you have understood the lessons or concepts that have been discussed or presented. Next would be the attendance in meetings. Regardless whether it's an online meeting or a face-to-face interaction, your attendance in both is necessary because it would help you be updated with any announcement or information or lessons that might have been discussed during that time. Next would be to submit tasks on time. Remember that since worksheets and activities are parts of the requirements, you're also expected to submit them on time. As a form of courtesy and respect to your other classmates who really put an effort to finish them, to submit them on time. Also, I will not be tolerating late submissions as it might result to point deductions or even non-acceptance. Next is to effectively deliver presentations. Regardless of what kind of presentation it is always expected that you prepare ahead of time, ahead of the schedule for you to be able to deliver it effectively. Simply reading or simply repeating what was on the presentation is not good. You have to actually discuss. And lastly, you have to communicate and cooperate. Communicating by asking questions for something that is unclear, communicating with your classmates for any missed requirements, or communicating with your group mates in case that there would be group activities that would be assigned in the future. And of course, you have to cooperate with yourself, with your classmates, and with your teacher. Another requirement would be your textbook. Now, this is one of the required textbooks. It's going to be You and the Natural World, Quantitative Research by Phoenix Publishing House. It's written by Richard Pulmonis in 2017. Although it's not technically a requirement, but this one would help you in terms of being abreast with any information that we're going to have in our discussion. If you do not have this book, it's okay. You could use any other book as long as it discusses quantitative research. And now for the questions. The first question is, how are classes conducted? Now, the classes are either synchronous or asynchronous, depending on the schedule. For asynchronous classes, we will make use of Genio for the learning packages, which will be assigned to you. If you're familiar with the ALOT program, it's similar to that particular practice, albeit a bit different. For the synchronous classes, we will use online meeting platforms such as Zoom or Google Meets. That way, we'd be able to actually have an actual discussion in real time. The next question would be, will we still conduct research? That's very much interesting because the answer is yes and no. No, because the students will not be tasked to come up with their own research for this particular course. You might do it for the next semester in your research project. And yes, because you will still have simulated situations that will allow you to apply what you have learned in terms of conducting research. So you're not going to conduct your own research, rather you'll be applying what you have learned in interpreting data which will be given to you. And last question, are we going to have group activities? Well, given the current learning environment and the situation that we have right now, group activities are not technically advised. However, should there be changes in the situation, there are possibilities for a change. So hopefully I am able to answer these questions. Should you have any other questions, you may feel free to reach me via my email or simply ask your advisor to voice it out to me in the future.